A popular 90s rap group named Clipse split up when one member named Malice became a Christian. He stopped doing secular rap, changed his name to No Malice, and started making Christian rap music. Fast forward to today, him and his brother Pusha T drop a new Clipse album titled Let God Sort Him Out. And although it's definitely not a Christian album, Malice has not backed down from his Christianity. Some people are questioning why he did this album and if it was the right move or not. So today I have a special guest who's going to help me decipher these issues, and I can't think of anyone better to talk about this. Before I pull my guest on screen, I want to introduce him a little bit. My guest tonight is Curt Kennedy. He's a husband, a father, a pastor. He has a YouTube channel that you should go subscribe to called Curt Kennedy's Corner, where he showcases his music and does social commentary. He's an artist. You can find his music on the popular streaming platforms and on kurtkennedy.com. And I'm sure I'm missing something. This brother does a lot, and I'm super excited to have him here on the live stream today. Welcome, Curt Kennedy. Thanks for coming on the show. How are you, man?
Good, man. What's good? Good to be here, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. So tell me a little bit more about yourself, and for the audience who doesn't know, when did you become a Christian, and how far after did you become a pastor?
Yeah, so I became a Christian. Well, real quick, I'm from the D.C. metropolitan area. So we call it the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So I spent most of my time in Maryland, and it's in DC sort of is the city in the middle of like this surrounding area. Baltimore, most people think it's Baltimore. Baltimore is its own metropolitan area. So I grew up in the DMV, and lived a street life for some time, drugs, guns, all of that type of stuff. Rapped, almost had a major record deal at one point in time, which was my dream at that time. But I got into some street violence, a shootout that had me facing 43 years in prison, to be quite honest.
Wow.
And so, but I was grateful because I knew of the Lord, but I wasn't living for the Lord. And so in the courtroom, that judge made that judge who was in front of me give me mercy, and he dropped a lot of my felony charges. I did very minimal jail time. And when I came out, I just was like, man, I want something more real than what I had been in. And so a buddy of mine had been going to a church in our area. We went to high school together, and I went and visited some of their stuff. And I just thought, you know what? Culturally, these people were different than what I was used to. I spent years in the streets. But I felt like these people were genuine about their relationship with the Lord. They loved the Lord. And I hadn't seen that before. People my age and younger that really loved the Lord. And so I just felt like, man, this was real to me. I wanted something different in the streets because I felt like I know what this is about, and this didn't really get me nowhere. And so I just started to go to this church, and I had to adjust because it was a different, churches are, whether they're the same ethnic thing, they're just a culture, right? Like churches have their own cultures. They're like almost like small cities, small communities. They have their own culture and the way they do things. And so this was a mega church though, but I had to adjust to the culture. And then once I did, I just felt like, man, I can grow here. I can grow here. So I stayed in that church. I got discipled by men, and then eventually they thought, hey, man, we want to see if you have a calling to be a pastor. I didn't really want to be a pastor, to be honest, because I just felt like I had sinned a lot and just done a lot of wild stuff, and the Lord didn't need me. I thought there were other guys that had a more tender heart for the Lord and were more faithful. So I wasn't really trying to do it. And the Lord had opened up for me to be a Christian rap artist. I went from looking at a record deal, facing 43 years in prison. All of that went away. And then after some time, I emerged. I'm a Christian now. And I started to do music again. And then I chose this moniker named Voice. And I didn't realize that the Lord would use that to let me, be a Christian rapper and do it for his glory. And just stuff was just happening, and rapped at John Piper's church in 2006. And that kind of opened the door for a lot of, at the time was called Reformed Rap with myself. This is when Lecrae was on the rise, Cross Movement was on the way out. And it was like me, Shy Lynn, Tim Brendo, Christ-centric. There were a few of us just like kind of coming up, and it was just wild that I was really on no label, not affiliated with anybody, but the Lord just opened up opportunities for me to kind of get out there. And so I used that to get my name out there. And then in that process, the church I was a part of has said, look, we see pastoral gifts in you. We'd like you to consider getting some theological training. And so I was like, I didn't really want to be a pastor, but I said, you know what, Lord, if you close the doors of what I'm doing musically, because I appreciated the ministry I had. I was traveling the country. I'm rapping at festivals. I was doing what I wanted to do in the world, but for the Lord, I didn't really want to be a pastor, but the Lord answered the prayer, started closing opportunities for me to do stuff. And I went and got trained, and then went from that to the church that I'm currently in now in Riverdale, Maryland, called Solid Rock Church. It's been a blast.
Amen. Praise God. So Christian rap is quite a wild space. I mean, you've been in it for a while, and
Yeah.
there's this idea of like being a Christian rapper and being a rapper that's Christian, right? And so is that kind of a switch that happened for you going from voice to Curt Kennedy? I've heard you describe your music now as like biblical worldview music. Could you explain that a
Yeah.
little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. When I came in, I was a part of a family of churches called Sovereign Grace that was uh, essentially reformed with a charismatic element. So I came in under Reformed theology. And so a lot of what I rapped about as voice was what Shylin would call lyrical theology, where
Yeah.
I'm just basically taking doctrinal truths, and rapping about them. But I always felt like, even though I liked it, it wasn't a natural fit for me. I felt like, but I did it because the family of churches I was a part of it wasn't an urban family of churches. It was a couple hundred churches across the country and in the world, but it was a largely suburban, middle to upper class, family of churches. It were largely white people. And so I really felt like I needed to do rap that they could relate to, because that's who I thought my audience was. I had no idea that when I would rap at John Piper's church in 2006, that would open the doors in ways that it did. So I really was doing music for Sovereign Grace, so the people who I thought would be my primary audience, I was rapping things that they would relate to and stuff like that. But then I met these guys like Shylin and Evangel from Christ Centric, and I was like, wait a minute, you guys are like rapping. Like I felt like I had to dumb down rap. So I was like, wait a minute, you guys are like rapping, but you're talking about these things. And so I kept the theology, but I always felt like, but I like doing that, but I'm an ex street dude. I want to rap about that. So around that time, Lecrae was coming out. In the world, the South was really starting to catch on. The South was really doing this thing. And it really got up neck and neck with East Coast rap and West Coast. So Lecrae was coming out with like, the Jesus music stuff, all that, him and Trip Lee. And he was talking about like just the struggles of being a Christian. I felt like I wanted to bring the ex-street dude who's now saved element, but I couldn't do that as voice, because the people that knew who voice was expected doctrinal, theological, somewhat reformed rap. And I just said, in order for me to rap the way I wanted to rap, I wanted to I needed to change my name and remove myself from who voice was. So I always said voice was Sovereign Grace's rapper. Curt Kennedy was the ex-street dude that got saved. So it was less about I'm a Christian who raps versus that. It was more about the content that I want to talk about. I can't talk about as voice, because the fan base for voice expected doctrinal teaching, and I was trying to go in a different direction.
That makes sense. And was this around the same time that you were transitioning into a pastor?
So I had actually become a pastor in 2008 at my church. So I've been a pastor at my church for 17 years. So I was already pastoring when I was voice. I came there as voice, like they knew me. But then in 2010, I did my last voice album called Christ the King. And I took about 3-4 years off, and I rebranded myself as Curt Kennedy, because I really wanted to come at things as a pastor. I'm walking people through, challenging life situations, and I'm dealing with it's like when you're talking to people who are on the verge of divorce, the doctrine of the Trinity isn't saving their marriage, right? Reformed
Yeah.
theology isn't saving their marriage. It's
Right.
hey, we don't even like each other. We're struggling with sin. And so I really felt like I wanted to bring an element of like the struggle of what it means to be a Christian into my music more than what I was doing as voice. And so I was a pastor, but because of that, it actually it kind of gave me more comfortability to be like, you know what, this is the direction I want to go in, because I'm pastoring people who understand theology. That's not their problem. Their problem isn't, oh, you just have to understand hypostatic union. That's not their problem. Their problem is I find it hard to resist giving in to lust. How do I resist lust? And I wanted to talk about things that were like the frustrations of being a Christian that I felt like nobody was really talking about, besides probably Lecrae at that time.
All right, that makes sense. Now, was it well received at first, or were people like, "Hey, you can't talk about these things. You're a Christian, man"?
Yeah, I think so. What I did, so this was back in the day when like Rapzilla was still kind of like a force, right?
Yeah.
This is when they were sort of like, okay. So what I did was I said, all right, look, I got to rebrand myself. So I contacted Philip Rude, who I think was the owner of Rapzilla, and I paid them money for me to they had this promotion going on where like they would put a splash page of your album cover up for 2 weeks on the website. And then so I paid to do all the stuff. And that was a good decision at the time, because it introduced people who didn't know me to me. And I had a graphic like poster, the album, all that stuff. So it graphic in the sense that it was kind of wild back then, but I had basically a gun to my head. And I was like this, like I was about to, like I was going to pull the trigger. So for some people, it was like, oh man, this guy's just trying to do something to get attention. But other people like, let me listen to what this guy has to say. So I gained a new fan base because people like the music. So there were people who appreciated it. I think I did, surprise some people who were aware of voice, because my content was definitely a little different. Probably edgier for them, but not like too edgy, but edgier for them. For sure. But no, I thought it was received pretty well. I mean, I feel like people have, at least at the time, I mean, the music has changed so much nowadays. It's so oversaturated that it's hard to even, it's hard to really put out music and really get it received today, because the way we process music is just so different now. But yeah, it seems like
nobody even listens to the same music anymore. Whenever I'm hanging out with my friends, it's always like, oh, did you hear about this guy? No, I haven't. And he's like another popular rapper.
Yeah, it's just there's so many, it's so fragmented, right? And I think on one level, if you're an artist trying to get out there, I think the way that the industry is set up like the way social media is set up, like it really revolves around that. Like, so you can have a fan base and tons of people who know you, but like we might never have heard of the dude, right? So it's almost like, you know what it did? Social media made rap music, Christian rap, more regional than ever, but not just regional, but like social. So like, oh, on TikTok, this guy's doing this, but you don't hear about him on Facebook. On Facebook, so it's almost like regional / social was and artists are able to, generate income and all that stuff for themselves. So I think it's just different than what it used to be, where it had to be like big splash, big label. Who are you affiliated with? Are you with 116? Are you with Lamp Mode? Are you with, God Over Money? Like there were all these big clicks that eventually, Beautiful Eulogy, like who are you with? And then it was like, all right, eventually that just got broken down. And now it's just like a bunch of, it's like the Justice League or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Here it is, the Avengers, but then now it's like individual parts now. Everyone's just doing their own thing. And it's really, I think it's good on one level, but it's also, there's just too much music now. It's just like, I don't want to, I don't really care. I'm just sticking with who I know. Yeah,
that makes sense. And I want to transition into the Clipse album, but before I do, so I'm interested in the way music is monetized today. And the way you do things is a little bit different. You usually refrain from putting your music on the streaming albums and you sell direct to consumer first. Why is that? And do you think that's a smarter strategy for artists today?
Well, so the reason why I did it was because I felt like artists don't get paid a lot through streaming unless you're a mega star. And even then, you're not really getting paid through streaming. It's streaming a lot gives you a visibility, puts you on playlists and things, and then all of a sudden you're getting booked to do shows and you're selling merch. So it's really a big deal, but you really don't get a lot of money from streaming. So I always felt like in order for me to recoup my sales, like what I call, everyone who makes an album, unless someone paid you to do it, you're using your own money. You're buying your own beats, you're going to the studio, you're paying for it to get mixed, for it to get mastered, and then you put it out through whatever medium. I use TuneCore personally, but like you want to recoup your money. So what I would do is not put it on the streaming services at first so that I could direct to consumer. I try to get my money back that I at least paid to make the album, and then I would release it to on the streaming services. Today, though, because it's less about like recouping my money and more about I want people to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because, everyone thinks they're saying things that are beneficial. And I believe that I'm saying things that are beneficial and helpful. So I would prefer people to just hear it. So now I just release it everywhere whenever it just drops. And you just realize, hey, if it's somehow you recoup the money you made, cool. If not, and people hear it, it is, it is what it is. So I think it can be a good strategy if you have the kind of fan base that will buy your content. But if you don't have a fan base that's really big enough to support, I just think you want to get your name out there. And I think it's just different. So it's just in that sense, I wouldn't do it.
That makes sense. It reminds me there's a story I heard about Nipsey Hussle when I think he had just gotten out of prison and he had like $100,000 from street money saved up and somebody stole it from him. And so his uncle or someone in his family bought him a Mac and he created an album, a Mac computer. He created an album, and to gain some money to start his career, he sold 1,000 albums with tickets to his concert for $100 each, and he made $100,000. And he got the idea from a restaurant in Philly that sold $100 cheesesteaks. And I always thought that was really unique, and that when I saw what you were doing, it reminded me of that.
Yeah, it was a hustle. That was a bold move to do that.
Yeah,
I don't think I made $100,000 like that, but that was a bold move by Nipsey Hussle, and it paid off. I know I wouldn't have bought his album for $100, but you respect the hustle, right? So 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that. I think now it's just like music has changed now. It's so oversaturated that at this point you just want people to hear what you're talking about. So now it's just like, all right, if people download it, they download it. I still use Bandcamp. So I have some loyal followers who will buy it on Bandcamp because they can pay you, you set your price. People can pay you more than that. So sometimes people will give you like, I'm paying $40 for this because I want to thank you and bless you. So I do use Bandcamp still. For the people that are loyal subscribers go there and they kind of buy it from there because they know they want to benefit the artist. But most people are just going to listen to it on streaming services, and you're going to get nothing for it except maybe some awareness.
Yeah. Now, growing up in DC, you were close. We talked before the podcast. You were about 3 hours away from where Pusha T and Malice grew up. Were you aware of them when they first came out? Was it like a local thing at first?
A little bit, not in the same way, not like how you would think, and for two reasons. One, because before Clipse came, the sound that was coming from Virginia was Timberland and Missy. So it was more like an R&B sort of unique kind of sound. That was more the vibe coming out of Norfolk. And the Virginia area was more known for sports than music. You had like Allen Iverson, Mike Vick. You had people who knew them, who were world-renowned players coming from this area. But musically, it was really like Timberland and Missy were the ones, and like Teddy Riley from even before then. So there was a lot of that. The Clipse, I guess they're Clipse now. I used to call them the Clipse. But like they didn't really hit DC like that. Also, the second reason, because DC has its own brand of music called go-go music. So DC's own style of music was more popular here than anything else. I mean, rap was known and accepted, but like people didn't care about rap in the same way unless you were a star. So it didn't hit DC until it kind of hit everywhere else.
Yeah, they talk about it on the Breakfast Club interview that they just did. and Charlemagne was asking like, why doesn't Virginia get a lot of credit for because you said there's a lot of artists, there's a lot of guys who did sports who came up and come from there. And he basically said, at least with the music, a lot of people had to leave Virginia to actually blow their music up. And he said, for example, with Clipse, they went to Jersey and they blew up in Jersey. That's when the song Grinding came out, was in Jersey.
That's how it is in DC too. A lot of artists, I mean, Wale eventually got known and, you know, signed with Rick Ross's label and stuff. But yeah, you tend to, the music market is stronger in certain cities and certain areas. And you just gotta, if you don't know someone that's willing to invest in you or have a team around you that'll invest in you, then a lot of times, you're just gonna, it just is what it is. So you got to go from, if it's not known for music, you got to go somewhere else. So that's what they did, and it worked out for them.
Yeah. So I came across your music when I met my friend Ron Wagogo. Ron, if you're watching, shout out. He told me to look you up. He told me to look you up, and at the time, you were releasing C4. You know, and what really hit me was the skit you did. It was the failed skit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it's called, is a skit on the album.
It's called
right?
Failed, yeah.
Yeah. And was this a real dream that you had? For the people who aren't familiar, if you'll probably do a better job explaining it than me, so I'll let you do it.
So Failed was a song on the album, but it was half me explaining the story and then the back half me rapping it. But it was basically a song that I had gotten a phone call from my wife that something was wrong with something had happened to one of my sons and that she wanted me to come home. And so I'm describing this on the way, like I'm bringing you into how I'm feeling and on my way home. And I explain it. And then he basically says that he was touched inappropriately by the next door neighbor. And so I'm walking through my emotions and my anger. I was really offended, really hurt. I go to the neighbor's house to confront the neighbor. The neighbor is kind of like playing it off like, hey. And then when the neighbor said, so how's your son? You know, I just lost it. And then I just attacked the neighbor and we were all this stuff. And so, and then I'm explaining to you everything I'm feeling. And then at the end of the song, I wake up and say it was just a dream. And so that's what Alex is asking. That was not a real dream. That was an artistic expression of a fear that probably almost every dad has, right?
Right.
Like just the fear of, man, like I never want that to happen to my kids, because you just intuitively think, I want to protect my kids from anything like that. And you would feel like you failed if that happened. And even though it's not your fault, the instinct would be, I failed to protect my family, you know, and you feel that. So it was a song, I think, to be honest with you, and again, shameless plug on some level, I think it was the most powerful song I've ever done. And I think that was like one of the songs that I feel like artistically, I would just put that against anything that's been done artistically. And that's what I was trying to do. I wanted to show that, like, as believers, we can do really good artistic songs that hit. And I kid you not, I had people from all over the world who heard that and were like, brother, I was in tears. I was praying for you. Like, a lot of people resonated with that song because they just didn't know, is this real or not? And it was, when I did it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you could feel every emotion. I know I did.
Yeah, when I did it, I did it in one take. And I was so glad, because after I was done, I was like, I can't do this again. I told my engineer at the time, I can't. I said, man, let's listen to it. And I felt like and I was grateful, because even though it wasn't a true story, it was a real fear. And so recording it and having to build you into the emotion and it scale up, it was emotionally taxing to actually do that song. And so I was glad I did it in one take. I didn't have to do it again, because I don't know if I could have. It was just, in fact, I didn't even want my wife to hear that when I was like, man, she's going to probably, I didn't let her hear it for a while because I didn't know how she would respond to
Yeah.
hearing that. But it was a crazy song, but it was a beautiful artistic expression that says, hey, as believers, we can do stuff that even the world hasn't done. We can push
Yeah.
the envelope and try to do something crazy. So I appreciated doing that. And that whole album was just a crazy album for me.
Yeah, it was great. And that's where I fell in love with your music, because that was my first experience with your stuff. And because at the time, like, I mean, Rapzilla was still pretty popular, and that was about 2017, 2018, right?
Yeah. I
Now,
hadn't been with Rapzilla since 2014.
yeah.
But they were still kind of relevant at that time.
And I was always looking for new artists, and I would just go on Rapzilla and just look through everything, because they would just post new stuff every day. And then I would ask people, and I had met Ron, and that was really cool. And the reason I bring it up, I mean, that song also goes into Deflection, where you take the dream as kind of like a message from God, and you make another message out of it, which was awesome. Feel free to talk about that. And then after, I want to talk about your Kanye song, which is, I feel like, on your most recent album, and that'll get us into Clipse.
Yeah. So Deflection. So when you hear Failed is a story that I thought my son was touched inappropriately, but graphically inappropriately, right?
Yeah.
And then I reacted to that. And in the song, my wife had been asking me, please don't go to the neighbors, because I was angry. She knows I'm an ex-street dude, so she was worried about what would happen if I go, what's going to happen if I go over there. So she was begging me not to go. So on the album, it's hashtag CSEE, the number 4. It's on any streaming platform. On that album, the next song after that was called Deflection. So I used the dream of that happening to my son as the Lord telling me that I deflect from humility. So my wife was asking me not to go. I ignored her because I'm deflecting. And so I used that song to go into a different sort of piece of mine to say, hey, the Lord was showing me that we just deflect a lot from what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to prioritize. So I justified going over there knowing that violence could happen because of what happened to my son. It was a way to deflect, like, what fruit of the spirit do I need to have right now? And so that's what that song did. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Everybody go listen to it. You'll enjoy it. And then another song you did recently was, I believe it's called What Happened to Kanye?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Kanye went through a period. I mean, he always kind of had these undertones of Christianity in his music from his mother. I mean, he did Jesus Walks. I don't know what year that was. Do you remember?
That was 2004.
Yeah, so a long time ago. And he's always kind of had these undertones. And recently, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, he had this kind of big public come to Jesus moment. He started kind of like these church services where he wasn't preaching, but he was putting together, inviting pastors, doing a lot of music, came out with an album. What's the album name he did? Jesus Saves?
He did. It's called Jesus is King.
Jesus
and
is
then
King.
And then he did 2 albums. One was Jesus is King, and one was he did a gospel album, like a real, like, just gospel music album. It wasn't really him, but he kind of released it in that way.
Yeah.
I forgot what that. They were both like, I forgot what that album was called.
And then since then, he's made quite some crazy statements, calling himself God and kind of backtracking on the Christian. I believe he just denounced Christianity at one point and was like, I'm not rocking with it at all. It's not me anymore. He went through his divorce, through this whole process, has some bitterness because I'm sure we could all relate. He's not able to see his kids as much as he would like to. And sometimes that bitterness can drive us away from God. I'm sure we've all had those moments.
Sure.
But at what point did you make this Kanye song, and at what point was he in? Because there's kind of been a little bit of a turnaround recently as well.
Yeah, so the album you're talking about was 2023. I dropped an album called I'm Warning You, Do Not Listen to This Album. And the lead single from that album was called What Happened to Kanye. And it was around the time where, well, let me get quick backstory. When Kanye dropped, a lot of people were like questioning this album, questioning it. And I did a song called Don't Con Kanye. And I was basically saying, look, if someone professes Jesus, we give them the benefit of the doubt until not. So I had a Paul in Philippians 1 kind of perspective. Whether they preach Christ out of rivalry and envy or not, Christ is being proclaimed. So I thought whether he's genuine or not, he's going to make people, because of his popularity, his brand, who he is, he's going to make some people want to discover like what Jesus is about. He's going to probably get some people who used to be believers but are not anymore kind of come back to the faith. There were so many things I thought the Lord could do that I was like, let him do what he does. But I also recognized, I knew early on, he did an interview where he felt like God needs him to spread all this stuff, and God told him to be present. I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna end well. And so after he just started really just doing crazy stuff, he was still associated with Christianity in many ways. And even though people weren't sure if he was really a Christian, there's always an opportunity to dig at Christians, right? To say, look at what you guys do. So I did a song called What Happened to Kanye, basically kind of talking to him and just like, bro, what happened? Like, how did you go from being a Christian to saying the stuff you're saying now? And so the whole song was me just, sort of thinking out loud, verbal processing what I'm seeing him say and do, and appealing to him to like, chill out, bro. Like, just chill out. Like, like the Lord is, and I just think, I think a lot of times, even on a smaller scale, we're tempted to think like the Lord needs us, and he just doesn't. It's really interesting. Yeah. So he just doesn't need us. And so I just thought, so that song for me was really just trying to appeal to him, not expecting him to hear it, but just wanted to put it out there like, what is wrong with this dude? And also just to help other believers be like, look, we don't got to be defined by popular celebrities who start to malign the faith. Like, my faith isn't defined by what Kanye West says. And so that song was also kind of separating myself from what people think Christianity is as presented by him.
Yeah. And I just did, he recently stepped into Jesse Lee Peterson's church. Are you familiar with Jesse Lee Peterson?
I am.
Yeah, he's a wild boy.
Yeah, he definitely is.
I'm glad to see Kanye stepping foot into a church again, but probably not the right place. I did a reaction video.
Yeah, and I don't know his motive, right? Because I think Kanye seems to if we judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, then if we look at the history, he seems to do things for a particular reason, right? So out of all churches, you go in a church that people would say Kanye went to. So I don't know why he did that. And I'm with you on Jesse Lee Peterson wouldn't be the church I'd go. I think it would be wise to go to if you're looking for a solid theology and stuff like that. But I think you just don't know why he's doing that. And I think he has a track record of doing things to get attention, to get his name out there. Because he's been saying some wild stuff even before that. So yeah, may the Lord bring him to true repentance and true faith. And I hope that I would love to see that happen for him. But I just think we just always have to be careful. Because so much of us, we want Christians to validate, like famous people to validate Christianity. And I'm good if people don't care. I'm good if people don't validate it. Like Jesus validates Christianity. Amen. I don't need anybody. I don't need a celebrity to do that. Like, I'm good with God who sustains the life of all celebrities, right? Like, I'm not going to worship the creature when the creator is the one who sustains the life. So I don't need anyone to validate it. But I think oftentimes we get excited. Oh my gosh, such and such is a Christian, as if it makes us cool. It's like, I don't care if the world thinks I'm cool or not. Like, I believe in the Lord, whether people think it's cool or not. I don't care. So.
Right. And that's a good point. I think sometimes people feel an insecurity about their profession of faith. Maybe not as much anymore with the way culture has shifted, but over the last couple of decades, Christianity is just seen as this evil in America almost. And so I get the insecurity, but I'm with you. I don't need somebody to validate my faith. Jesus is enough.
Yeah, 100%, bro.
And the reason this relates to Clipse, I'm not sure if you were aware of this, but Kanye wanted to produce the Clipse album. So I'm sure, in these high circles, everybody talks, and everybody was probably talking before any of us knew, Clipse is coming back together. They're going to do an album. And the producers start talking. And Kanye, I mean, he's an amazing producer. His rap music, some of it, is very questionable and even quality wise now at this point. But
Yeah.
producing, I mean, you can't take that away from him. But I mean, I think maybe because of his comments, Clipse was like, no, thank you. But also, Pharrell invited them out to Paris. And I guess there's an LV, a Louis Vuitton studio, where it's like a studio inside of a workshop in Paris.
Yeah.
And Pharrell's is all hooked up over there, and it was like completely free to them. So they ended up going with Pharrell. Do you think it would have been received differently if Kanye produced the album?
I think it depends on the production. Here's the thing, right? Here's where, because all people are made in God's image, people tend to be forgiving of people, especially if they're celebrities, right? If you have entertained people, if you have meant something to them, your music spoke to them at a time, or your music encouraged them at a time, people will tend to forgive some of your greatest shenanigans if you kind of snap out of it. In that sense, we're willing to forgive because we're made in God's image. There's a propensity for most people to forgive. And if you entertain me, then I'll quickly forgive more than I would someone who is in my family that hurt me or betrayed me or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I think if he would have put out an album with the Clipse, and the album would have had good production, because it would have entertained people, I think people would have maybe given Kanye like, hey, Kanye's back. Remember that we want that old Kanye, right?
Yeah.
But I think Kanye would have probably, again, the track record, he may have made it about him and said stuff like that and could have derailed the album. So I think it just depends on, one, if the production was good, and two, how does Kanye publicly talk about the album? If he wouldn't have done that and the production was good, I think it would have been received real well.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Kanye taking a backseat in anything. So I get what you're
100%.
saying.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see it.
All right, so I have some clips for us. No pun intended. Let's see. I want to show people this first interview. I have 3 clips from, and it's No Malice. And I want to show people, this is 9 years ago. He had been independent for probably like 5 or 6 years at this point. And I just want to show people the kind of person, like how he portrayed himself as No Malice without Pusha T, completely against secular music, and just how he talked. You should be able to hear this. If you can't, just let me know.
Stuff back. I was like, taken by it. Yeah.
So you don't see a time where No Malice and Pusha could do an album where you maintain where you are today.
I would always maintain. I don't compromise.
No, I know, of course.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
I'm with you.
He does him and you do you. And you guys talk about both sides of the game, like your evolution, and where he's still at. Because that's a conversation we was having also before this about how the world and a lot of our family members, kids who, people we love and care about, grew up with, always want you to be the same person your entire life.
Right.
They never want you to evolve. They don't want you to move out of your neighborhood. They don't want you to change your perspective. They don't want you to wear different clothes. They don't they criticize you for evolving. And I think you've bravely said, you know what? Now I'm not that person no more.
Well, I'm definitely not that person no more. I don't even think, I could write lyrics the same way anymore. People that enjoy the Clipse catalog, they like it for what it was, of what we did, what we gave. And I'm never going to try and tamper with that brand or try to, twist it now. You want Clipse for what you remember them for. And that's what we gave you. So, you can revisit some of those albums and stuff. But I definitely now wouldn't try and tamper with the brand.
And you would never do a collaboration with Pusha?
No, I don't shut the door on anything, man. But, I believe it's my calling to remain flat-footed, to not, waver, You know, I believe whether people know it or not, they are counting on someone to stand for something. You know, even if they don't know that that's what they need. Everything is changing. Everything flip flops. Everything is trending, and nothing remains the same.
Did you? I know you don't.
And then now he talks about listening to 50 Cent in the gym and how he doesn't do that anymore.
You know, I was just saying the other day when I used to work out. I mean, when I work out, I used to listen to 50 Cent's "Get Rich or Die Trying." That was like my motivation, you know. But I notice now I can't groove to certain things the same way I used to. I just can't, and it's not me making a conscious decision.
Nah, it happens.
Yeah, like
Some
it's
things
real.
just don't sound the same.
Yeah, like it's real. It's definitely.
So he talks about how he can't really listen to the same music. He's not the same person. And these are all things that you hear from Christians. But sometimes we can overcorrect. What do you think about Christians listening to secular music? Is it completely inappropriate, or is there room for it?
You know, I think people, we love to try to make things these sort of either or because dichotomies work for us. But to me, when it comes to music, like, first of all, I could say, well, why are we talking about this music? There are ungodly movies that people watch. I mean, I know Christians who watch a lot of vampire movies. It's like, well, you know, it's like, what? But vampires suck blood, and God said that not to eat blood because the life is in the blood in Leviticus, right? So, like, sometimes I wonder, like, why is it always music and like rap music that's not good? Like, so on one level, I don't know if everyone's really consistent in their conviction, but to specifically answer the question, I think so many things are a Romans 14 issue. Romans 14 it's about personal discernment and not binding other people's consciences to your convictions, right? So, and at the time in Romans 14, Paul uses two very, like, one person doesn't eat certain things. One person thinks a day is holy. Those were dietary laws and Sabbath. And Paul was saying, you know, the person, you're free to do whatever, right? So, and he was saying, don't bind a person. If you're with a brother, like, say we go out to have a meal, right? Let's say I don't personally drink alcohol, but not out of conviction. I just don't drink it. I don't really care for it. But like, say I wanted to get a drink and you were like, yeah, I'm not going to drink, man. My parents were alcoholics. So I'm not going to be like, all right, well, cool. I'm going to get a drink. You sure I'm not going to do that. The point is, I say, you know what? I'm not going to drink either. I don't even want to tempt my brother's conscience. That's Romans 14. I don't want to bind consciences. And then you get 1 Corinthians 6 and 1 Corinthians 10. All things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. Not all things build up. So I think when I want to answer this question, I don't think it's as clear as like sin or righteousness, right? I think there's wisdom and folly. I think is this wisdom to do that? Is it not? Is it lawful? Like, it's not sinful, but is it really beneficial, right? So when I use those kind of metrics, I think it's really going to depend on the maturity of the individual and the impact that it has on that person. I think there are some categories where it's just not wise. Like, I don't watch movies that have or look at things that show women's bodies and things like that because the Bible says flee sexual immorality. But if I watch a movie with some gratuitous violence, I'm not tempted to imitate that violence. But if I watch a woman that I'm attracted to, or I watch some graphic sex scene, I'm going to be aroused by that and want to. So I think so much of it depends on who's listening, what's the maturity level, and what impact does it have on that person. I think I could listen to the Clipse album now and not be like, oh my gosh, like I'm mature enough to be able to do that. But would I let my children listen to certain things? No. Would I let them watch certain things? No. But some things, it's like, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So I don't know if it's, for me, it's not as easy as sin or righteousness. It's like, well, it's lawful, it's not sinful, but it may not be beneficial. It may not build others up. And those are kind of the standards I think through.
That makes sense. And there's also a context to the content, right? You could have some of the same content in your music that's in like maybe an NBA YoungBoy album, but in your music, you may even be talking about it in a past tense of things you did in the mindset you were in at that time, but it's an overcoming and a maturing and a realization about what you did. Whereas on an NBA YoungBoy, it's I'm currently doing this and I'm proud of it. Right?
Yeah, 100%, bro. And I think that's a crucial distinction that people don't make. In fact, I would say more Christian media. I think somehow this is sort of off topic, but it may connect. I think somehow Christian media, Christian creativity has gotten a rated G stamp on it. Like somehow Christianity became fun for the whole family, you know, like the CCM kind of vibe. And it's like, but the Bible, redemption is rated R, fam. Like, you know, there's stories in the Bible. It's like, let's go to Judges and how he cut up a prostitute and sent her body to put, you know what I'm saying? Let's go to Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, like redemption is rated R. And I think sometimes because we're so worried about things, it's like, look, I'm not saying show a graphic sex, but if you're going to, you know, say things, there's a reason why, as to your point, I'm telling this to show the overcoming nature of it. But like, how do you give God glory for things that you didn't come from one end to the other? So I think just in Christian art in general, there is a rated G, like my 3-year-old has to be. I just don't agree with that. I think it's like, no, redemption is rated R, fam. It's a bloody story. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The next clip is basically it's the last one on this interview here, and it's No Malice talking about when he became a Christian and what people thought about it. 1306.
So when you finally decided to come out with, you know, and say, look, this is the way I want to live my life, did you have people, other artists, come to you trying to have like strange interventions with you because they thought you were going through like a midlife crisis?
Nah, listen, I'm not even simple like that. And here's the thing. I was actually, people say you're brave or you're courageous for doing something like this, and I don't subscribe to none of that. Actually, what happened was I was trying to go harder within the rap. I was wondering why I could not be like everyone else. I was looking at my surroundings and my peers, and they was partying and having fun, and I wanted to be comfortable like that. I probably partied the hardest, you know, but then at night I would feel miserable. Like I had this misery, and I kept going up and down, and I was wondering, no one else is going through this. You know, I was even asking, you know, my homies and the people that I was on tour with, and they told me, they said, you know, you're the only one that asked that question. Now, back to what you were saying, when I was coming home one day and talking with myself, I said, I'm just going to live. Forget this guilty, you know, feeling, forget all this regret, you know, do what you want to do. Ain't nobody else tripping like you. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and party and do it up. And I literally tried to sear my conscience, like forget it. So when people say you found God, I did not find God. I was trying to party with the devil. Trust me, I was trying to go hard. God himself said, no, not you. He did not allow me to do it. And that's what I seen with my own eyes. Whether anyone believes it or not, I know for a fact he did not allow me to sear my conscience and, you know,
and be numb.
And be numb. Exactly. Perfect word. And be numb to it. And I tried.
Because that's what
Man, I know you can relate to that.
Yeah, 100%, man.
It's I remember I was 18 when I became a Christian, just out of high school. And during high school, it was just, you know, all partying and drugs and women and the things that I just had absolutely no issue doing. All of a sudden, I just couldn't do anymore. But there was this time of like, I didn't even really know what was sin and what was not. So I was doing things and I had these ups and downs. But as you can see here, No Malice is completely unapologetic about what the Christian life is in these interviews 9 years ago. And I don't think that's changed. I'm going to show us another clip here in a Joe Budden interview he did recently where he still stands on Jesus. He stands on business and he doesn't back down. Some of the confusing things for me is, as he said, he couldn't even really listen to the same music anymore. And we talked about the freedom in which you can, and there's may not be wise to do so. But do you think it's a different level of creating similar music? Like, would you ever be able to create a song like you did back when you were in the streets?
No, I couldn't. Unless the only way I could do that was I had an idea for an album where I was trying to say, okay, how can I reach the hood? I can't just give them Curt Kennedy Christian rap. They'd be like, man, I ain't trying to hear all that. So I did an album called, it had many different, over years, it had many different titles, but basically it was called Once Upon a Time in America, the album. And what I did was I narrated it, but it started off with me rapping just the way I would rap in the street. But over the course of the album, I'm explaining what happened. The album essentially gets saved. So it begins rapping like I'm a street dude and it ends as a believer. I could do it in that sense because it's going somewhere. To your point, it's overcoming. I don't think I could just rap a song and rap like I'm in the streets unless it was connected to a larger body where I am moving from that to something else. I couldn't just do that necessarily. Personally, I couldn't do that, no.
Yeah. That's a really interesting idea. And what liberties would you take? Would you be comfortable taking in those songs? And this is a two-part question because this is something I find fascinating too. You do use the N-word in some of your songs. And I wonder, is it different? Obviously, it's different, but what's the idea behind that? And would you use those same liberties for other words, other cuss words?
So I would say most cuss words are universally considered cuss words, right? So even though I don't think those words existed when the Bible talked about like how to communicate coarse joking, and people go well, Paul basically said elephant dude, all that. I think the point is you want to glorify God in your speech. So you said something earlier about context. I think sometimes context, the community you're around, all those things matter in how you speak, right? But I think in most cases, you want to do things to honor the Lord. You can say, Jesus said, if you say raka, which means you fool, you're liable to the fires of hell, right? Like, so, because it wasn't just the words, it was the heart behind those words, right? So I think God is going to evaluate the words, but also the heart behind those words. So I think when it comes to just straight up and down cuss words, that's just not something I'm going to do in terms of music. Words that are universally considered cuss words. Gotcha. I'm just not going to do it unless I'm making a real serious point. And even it would have to be, you understand why, like people say, it's clear why I said it because I even say it in the song. But I wouldn't do it with universal cuss words. The N-word is not universally considered that. From some people would say it is, some people don't. And I think it really was a word. It's a derogatory word that was used towards Black people, that a segment of Black society adopted that word, and it became a way that we interact with each other, right? So there's different ways to process that. I feel like even though using that word, I feel like there's context to why I would use that word as well. So I think as believers, we just have to be very mindful, not so much of like, oh, if I said that, what all these other people, how they're going to think about it, because then you get in the fear of man categories. But like, what's the purpose of me using this word? Like, what's the purpose of me saying this or doing that? Am I just trying to be edgy? Because then that's just like, that could be fear of man. I just want people to think a certain way about me. That could be selfish ambition. You really have to do the work of saying, would I do that? And when I chose to use that word, like when I chose to use that word, I used it either in the context of how people use that word, like what they would say about that, or I usually had a reason. I didn't just say it just to be like, I'm a street dude and I can say this word. It's okay to say it. I usually have a reason why I'm saying it. I think most times it's clear like why I'm using that, because it's not like my album is full of the N-word. There may be one or two songs on an album where that word appears. And it's really for a purpose. So yeah, I think there's liberties, but I think we just have to be all just again, what's wisdom, what's folly, right? This is lawful, but it may not be beneficial, it may not build people up. That's how I kind of go.
Yeah, and to your point about the context, you have a song called Rednecks and
Yeah,
I
right.
loved that. So I mean, I learned a lot. I didn't realize even the historical context to like what a redneck is and how the people who founded America were considered the ignorant people of that time, and they were sent here. Yeah, and I learned a lot from that. Now, and we're not throwing Malice or No Malice under the bus. We both want to see him succeed, both financially and to glorify God and continue his Christian faith. Absolutely no hate here. But we also want to call a spade a spade. Do you think I'm not going to speak for you, but would you say it's foolish to kind of go backwards and make songs, even like some of his lyrics, he's not necessarily like outright glorifying it, but he's kind of talking like, he's like, oh, I got dope spots. And like, he's like kind of saying that stuff. And it's reminiscent and he's trying to like stay on brand to Clipse. But would you say that's maybe foolish?
I do. I think it is. And I think it's foolish, probably not so much because I think he is somehow regressing, like he is shrinking back. I just think it's foolish in the sense that we don't need to prove or like we don't need to push back against, judgments against Christians about how we are in such a way that we show we don't have to submit to those judgments, right? Like I think sometimes when I heard him say some stuff, it was kind of like he justified it kind of for that reason. Like I'm just, I know people are going to talk, but then also I think, with the passing of his mom and dad, I think that kind of also gave him license to get back with his brother. I feel like he's kind of doing this album for his mom and dad, to be honest, the way he talks about birds don't fly, whatever, birds don't sing. The first album, I think they talk about that, and he said some of the stuff in the interview. But yeah, I just think it's unwise in the sense that what the culture needs more is just clearly defined holiness, not self-righteousness, but just holiness, like an unwillingness to compromise in ways that show like, hey, they really, really believe this thing, And I think we get a lot of the Jesus walks type of Christianity where the only reason why that song blew up for Kanye because no one believed that Kanye was serious about Jesus, so that's why it blew up. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was only the church gave him a dove award, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Church is paying him $30,000 to come to perform that song and then leave him at $30,000. What are you doing, fam? But I think the world didn't believe that he was serious about Jesus. So they were like, oh, it's just a song. But when you're serious about Jesus, it hits different. And so I think we need to demonstrate that there's enough potential compromising among Christians who are out there that it would just be good to be like, and even in the rap community, there is this sense of this lore of worldliness, and not in the sense that like Christian rappers are trying to pursue the world, but like there's not a clear distinction from look, talk, dress, just some of the content, may be just different. But so I think it really depends. But yeah, I just think it's unwise. I think I would have preferred him to just hit those themes, but mention, as we talked about earlier, some of the overcoming elements. Like you could listen to that album because we know he's a believer. We can hear some Christian things in what he's saying, or we can interpret he could have said something that he didn't say because he's a Christian. But it's not like you're going to hear that album and walk away and wonder who Christ is and what made him follow him, if that makes sense. I think he could have added more of that. So yeah, I would say, I don't think it's wise to do that. I think it's just unwise to just circle back, spin the block, and be like, even though it's with your brother, I get all of that. Yeah. And I think he also knew if I talk about those things in this context, the album's not going to do well.
Yeah, I mean, it may be the biggest album of 2025 at this rate.
Yeah, it might be.
A lot of people receiving it well. And I think there may be some like redeeming aspect of, like you said, you may not listen to the songs and come away wanting to go back to church or inquire into Christianity, but it does kind of like you scratch your head like, hey, why did they take so long to come out with an album? What was this break that they took? Why did they take it? And it could lead you down that road, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
it's possible.
There's a really a major culture shift right now where so many people are considering going back to church, considering Christianity, maybe for the first time even. And I think this just adds to that culture shift. I'm definitely happy it happened, but I think you're right to say that there are some things that may have been foolish in the process.
Now, here's what I will say. The one thing that I think where I could say I'm okay with it is that in his interviews, he's still unapologetic.
Right.
So it's not like in this culture, the music doesn't influence people as much as it used to. That's what I would say. Social media influences people more than the music does.
Yeah.
And that's a big shift that I feel like not many people are talking about. There was a time when rap music in and of itself, like, was a negative or whatever influence, whatever it was, right? Rap music in and of itself was a significant influence, as artists would, whoever they are. And don't get me wrong, artists can still influence musically, but what shifted is because music is free and it's so accessible, you can just go listen to Spotify. When you don't pay for something, your heart isn't in it as much.
Yeah.
Right. This is the shift that I feel like I don't know if people are highlighting this shift as much. But when you pay for something, like if I take you out to dinner, let's go do dinner out, and we go do dinner, right? And let's say the dinner was terrible food, but I paid for it. You might be like, it wasn't that bad. It was all right. Because you didn't pay for it, right? But
Right.
if you paid $120 for that meal, you're going to be a little offended, right? So
Yeah.
Because nowadays, music does not require anything to listen to it. There was a time where like, oh, you got to go buy this CD. You can't wait for it. I remember lining up outside of Sam Goody to get 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, to massacre these albums, right? I wanted to,
Yeah.
I'm in line waiting to get these albums, Eminem's album, Jay-Z's. So like nowadays it's just on streaming platforms. So you're so accessible, the music, like you can listen to something, it's cool, you move on, right? But what actually changes people more than the music is social media, because now people have access to you. Now they can watch your interviews, they follow you on social media. They get to know you more. You influence people more by what you do on social media than the actual art that you do. The reason why I'm saying that is because in his interviews, he's still very unapologetic. And so there are going to be a lot of people who will watch his interviews before they hear the music because they want to see what he's talking about. And so he's still saying it's still Jesus for me. He's still
absolutely
faithful. I'm still with it. And in that sense, I think, okay, there might be something to this.
Yeah. And that's that'll put us on this next clip here, which is where he is unapologetically
really be free
Christian.
from that.
How do you get to that free space?
Well, I'm gonna tell you now, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. So for me, it's Jesus. Jesus Christ freed me from everything. Everything. Not trapped. My whole attitude. We did the listening party. And we did it.
Thanks for the invite. We really appreciate it.
No, listen. No,
we didn't want to go anywhere.
Definitely didn't want to be there.
I'm gonna tell y'all why though.
New Clipse, who needs that? Right.
So we're there at Rock, and everybody that
get some
knew
Louis
me,
Vuitton, like
get that too. Everybody that knew me from before, they were all saying, "Yo, I can't believe we seeing Malice smile this much," and talking about how mean I was in the beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was the word about you.
unapproachable.
It was real. It was real. But now, I'm in a different space, and I think the music is even more incredible.
That part.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what you're talking about, where he doesn't shy away from it at all, and he's not a new Christian. Like even though Kanye may have made a profession of Christianity early in his life, when he was doing interviews after his kind of come to Jesus moment, you could tell it was like a very fresh. He didn't really understand too much.
Yeah.
Malice has been at it for over a decade. So
Yeah.
And he kind of took a step back and was out of the limelight and was, I don't know what church he went to or anything, but he was probably under some sort of discipleship for a long time. So it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hear that. And again, I think that's the culture we live in today. So like, I don't know, are you familiar with what's his name? I was about to say you familiar. I forgot his name. Was it Charleston White or something? That guy who
yeah.
He was recently on the podcast with David. What's his name? David. What's his name? Patrick Ben David.
It's hilarious. I just I have a video scheduled coming out tomorrow about it.
Yeah, and he talks about rap music and in a negative way, it's rape culture, and he talks about it being the devil and all of that. And I get what he's saying on some level. I get that the enemy can use anything. I think it's interesting that these people always talk about rap music as if rock and all that stuff isn't laced with witchcraft and all that stuff as well, right? R&B.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
It's just the music industry is. It's interesting why they always target rap. But I think that what people don't understand again today is that what's influencing people is not just movies and music. Now, like I don't know how old you are, but I remember a life before social media. I remember when no one had smartphones. I mean, no one had phones. You were going to pay phones, right? Nowadays, people wouldn't know what a payphone is, right? I remember before when your life did not revolve around this illusion of connection that is social media. So I think what influences people more now, like you can say rap is doing this and that, but people aren't as influenced by the music. I'm not saying there's no influence. I'm just saying people will hear you. They're going to want to see what you look like, how you're dressing, what you're talking about here. That's why people go viral. Songs don't go viral as much as clips do, right? But not clips to the group, pun intended, but a video clip, viral video clip. TikTok is about video clips, right? It might be a song attached with it, but it might be a dance or something that made it go viral, right? So a lot of things now, what influences, it used to be music, but what influences people now is visuals, is the possibility of status. Like, now a guy who was like a nobody in high school can start a YouTube channel and people just like his channel, and now he's got 1 million subs. And it's like he's making money and doing this, and he's sort of quasi, what they call a public figure, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an actual thing. That could happen now. So really, it's not rap anymore. It's really the social media sphere. And your media presence has more to do with what influences people than just your music.
Yeah,
nowadays.
That makes sense. So how are you doing on time, by the way?
I'm good, man. I mean, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm just
cool.
wherever we go with it, we go with it.
Cool. Yeah, I've got like 4 more clips to play for us, and then we can wrap it up. All right, so this is, I'm going to play 2 clips back to back. This is where they talk about how they came back together, what happened, and how Malice specifically got his father's blessing. His father was a deacon, and they were very close and did a lot of Bible studies together and whatnot. So I'm sure as his father as well, he looked up to him and had high regard for his blessing.
Amen.
It made me proud too, listening, pausing Dateline and. Did you hear? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because I know, Malice, you stepped away for a while,
Right.
and on Birds Don't Sing, you speak of the conversation where you got your father's blessing to return.
Right.
Like, what sparked that? Like, what made you want to get back into this game?
It wasn't so much that I wanted to get back into this game. I think what happens a lot of time. No, I think what happens a lot of times when people come or find faith, it paralyzes them where they don't want to do anything. And I do believe you do need to sit down and you need to read, and you need to study, and you need to find, you know, what this whole life thing is about. And then, and only then, you know, there's a lot of liberty. It's a lot of liberty in the word of God. And I just had a space that I know that only I can occupy. I mean, I believe that there's others who could if they chose to, but they don't. And, you know, and I wouldn't come in anytime earlier than this, you know. I felt like this was the right time. And so I asked my dad, I said, what do you think about me rapping again? And he said, son, I think you've been too hard on yourself. And I had no idea. My dad's a deacon, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I had no idea that that would even come out of his mouth, you know. He never bad mouth rap or anything like that. He bought me my first Gemini mixer technique system, you know what I'm saying? My Mattel beat machine. Like he supported me, you know, as far as me rapping. He didn't think it'd go anywhere, but he definitely did that or whatever. So I think the time was right.
And then we have he talks about the same thing on the Breakfast Club at 7:06.
Yeah.
So what got you back? What was the call that said, I want to do this again?
There were a few baby steps. I'm gonna say going out to Wyoming and you know, working on Use This Gospel with Ye, with my brother. I always knew that we could do it, but I just knew I needed a sit down period. You know what I'm saying? And what else did we do? We did Pusha's album, I Pray For You.
Yeah, we did the Nego album.
The Nego album, Punch Bowl. Yeah. So
Those,
I mean,
those were things I could ask for that I knew weren't, you know, just solid no's. And you know, I man, from there it was just like, what we gonna do?
Well, what was the exact moment though? Because y'all were on two completely different life paths. So what was the exact moment that said, okay, it's time to do another album?
Okay, so I'll say this. You know, when we were doing the Use This Gospel and Punch Bowl and Push's album or whatever, I had asked my dad. I was like, you know, what do you think about me rapping again? And he said, son, I think you've been too hard on yourself. And my dad's a deacon, you know, like he was a deacon. So to hear him say that, I am like, word, that's how you feel, like, you know.
And you just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you.
So back to what you were saying, how he got his father's blessing, and because both his mother and his father passed, I believe, in a short period of time between each other, this was really a way to connect again with his brother. I'm sure that had a lot of influence on the decision.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think your father, if you have a good relationship with him and there's a respect, his words are going to carry a lot of weight. It doesn't mean that's what the Lord is saying, but at the end of the day, you still are going to, you know, listen to what your dad is saying. But again, you know, to my point again, I think what I appreciate is that it's not like when he says Christians get like, what do you say, like paralyzed or whatever, like they don't want to do anything.
Too hard on themselves.
Too hard on themselves. Like, I appreciate that he said that, but didn't say, that's why I'm rapping again. I was just doing too much. Nah, he was like, I sat down. You know, I needed time to sit down and study, but I'm still about this life. I'm with it. I think on the Breakfast Club joint, he was like something like, man, I'm 100%, like I'm sold out, whatever. I think that's what people are going to hear when they hear the album. It's not just the clips. Like, oh, Clipse has a new album. I think people are going to, because these are, you know, they had a press run that was crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Like, they hit all of the major joints. Like, you know, Joyner Lucas dropped last Friday, and I was like, I'm not seeing anybody really talking about his project on YouTube. So I don't know how well he's going to do. But I think, you know, they hit all the major circuits. They hit, you know, Joe Budden. They hit Breakfast Club. Those are some of the biggest podcasts, you know. They hit a lot of spaces. I was just seeing them everywhere, like, wow. And because he maintained his faith and his brother respected it, Like you could tell Pusha respected his brother. That's his big brother. He respects his faith. It wasn't like he was like, man, go ahead, man. He respects his faith. And so I think that says a lot, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with close friends, it can happen too, but this is your brother. Like, he knows everything about you. They were super close. So he knows you were really once about that street life. And it's not just like, because sometimes in that context, like, oh, you got scared, so you went to church, right? Yeah. And it's like, no, like, I know my brother, and I know this was a genuine change in his life, and it wasn't just like this flimsy, I don't want to go to jail, so I'm going to go to the church, or something like that.
Yeah, and that's how it's framed, right? That's how they frame it. Yeah. And so I think even though you may not like the content of the music, it's not like, oh, but I don't think in the context, like, it's like watching a movie. I don't, even sports, man. I don't watch sports and think, man, God is glorified because I'm what, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I can appreciate things based on who God is and his sustaining and giving the ability for people to be athletes at this level, right? Or entertainers at this level. But I think sometimes we justify music, like, and we target music as if like, oh, as long as you just, it's you're only listening to gospel music, but everything else, it's like, man, I think people, what they call it, doom scrolling, right? I think people do more harm scrolling on their phone for hours on social media than you do listening to a Clipse album that may have a couple cuss words on it and talk about some things. I think more is done from what you see in social media trends than what music you're listening to.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's different. So
now there's a line that in the Clipse album, and Malice is going to talk about it, but I want to ask you before we talk about it, has there ever been a situation in your life, maybe money was tight or maybe it wasn't, and there was something that you could have done to make a quick buck, but it would have gone against your principles since you've been a Christian?
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean,
yeah. And we'll go to the clip now and we can talk more about it.
On POV, Malice, you said that you came back for the money. That's the devil. Can you explain it?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was a real fly line, and for anyone who has any questions about me, I'm Jesus inside out. Like, I'm all the way gone with it. Like, it's crazy. But I just took some artistic liberty, with that line. And really, to me, money is a good thing. You need money, especially to, you got friends and family to be able to help people. It's nothing wrong with money. I think people put a stigma on money. For the Bible says that it is the love of money that's the root of all evil, not the money. It's how much you love it. What are you willing to do for it? What won't you do for it? Do you lose all your principles and your morals? So I don't think we can demonize money, but for me, it was just a fly line.
And you said you gave the money to the church, right?
Nah.
The line, because the line is fresh.
Okay. Yeah.
Came back for the money. That's the devil in me.
Had to hide it from the church. That's the Jekyll in me. But I'm just talking about the duplicity and the dichotomy of, the mind and how people think and the two-sidedness to people. Sometimes that's everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's everybody.
Now you mentioned
and I'm not saying that he just did this for a quick buck, but I'm sure the money he'll make this year from tours and this music release will probably be more than the money he made in the last 15 years as a solo artist, as No Malice.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I tend to, part of, so we've talked about Romans 14 earlier, right? I think part of the wisdom of Romans 14 is it protects us from suspicion, right? So I think we're living at culture, right? Cancel culture, right? You got, even within the church, you got the mark of the political beast. Like, who are you voting for? we live in, Revelation 12 calls Satan the accuser of the brethren, right? Like 12, 10, and 11, right? So I think we live in a culture where we're just accusing people. We're suspicious of people when they say something like that. I believe him. I believe that he said it was just a fly line. The Hyde and Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, I don't know Jekyll, actually. What is that?
So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was like this is like an old story from like the 1800s, I think. Like where like they would be like, Dr. Jekyll was this doctor, but he had this side of him that would become this monster that was Mr. Hyde. And at night, like Mr. Hyde would terrorize. It was almost like the Incredible Hulk. It would be like, imagine the Hulk.
Gotcha.
Bruce Banner and the Hulk is what Dr. Jekyll was Bruce Banner, and the Hyde was Incredible. It was basically that, to be honest. I mean, it was basically that, but like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde was more nefarious than like Hulk was, right? So it was just, so the Hyde and Jekyll is really the play on words that he's talking about. I just thought it was a fly line. That's what he's getting at. So
yeah,
I believe him. I'm not suspicious of him saying, and then even if he says, I came back for the money, like what sin is that? There's a lot of things that we do. Like you could say, oh, okay, Christians are working 2 jobs. Why are you working 2 jobs? Because I need money, right? That's not sinful. It's not a lack of trust in the Lord. It's not like, well, you're not trusting the Lord. All right, then don't take no medication then,
Yeah.
Like God is sovereign over these things too. Like if you have a migraine, I'm sorry, you just got to trust the Lord, right? You got cancer, don't do chemo, trust the Lord. Like what are we talking about? So I think in many ways, I just believe him. I think he's genuine, and I'm not trying to be suspicious of people because I don't want to be the accuser of the brethren. Now, if you say something with your mouth, then that's different. But he said, look, I'm all the way sold out with it. I don't believe. I think as a rapper myself, I'm working on my last album. There's a lot of clever lines I'm trying to do because with rap is probably the only musical art form that uses the amount of words that we do. And so you're trying to be clever because you are competing with billions of words.
Yeah.
Like most songs, like they just don't use the type of they don't have as many words. And so when you're saying a lot of things, you're trying to find the most cleverest ways to say them. And I think sometimes you will say something that, oh, that's a bar right there. You'll use it because of you're hoping that people hear it and be like, oh, that was a bar right there. So I tend to believe that that's what he did. I think when you're rapping in particular, you're trying to find that balance of, I don't want to just talk about Jesus and I want to be clever with it. I want to have punches. I want to have, metaphors, and I want to have multis. I want to do a number of things so that people appreciate the music. I personally believe that because God is the creator, that Christians should be the most creative, which goes back to the song Failed. For me, I had a personal conviction specifically on that album, but as Curt Kennedy, I've always been creative, but I had a personal conviction as Curt Kennedy, the artist, that because, God is our creator, we need to be creative. And I don't want to take a dive because it's Christian, because it's for Jesus, but it just is like nothing to no one. I want to make music that people could say, hey, I think this is just as good as this. I think this is just as good as that. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with the line. I didn't really. And also, too, lastly, I think, hey, listen, that if he's really doing it for Ilmo, he's going to do with the Lord on it. Like, I didn't down the cross for him. I'm not going to be sitting on the great judgment seat in Revelation 20. So it's like, look, I'm like, why am I? Listen, I think every Christian needs to be more offended at their own sin than they are other people's sin or the potential of other people's sin. Be more suspicious of our own hearts than we are of people who have bigger platforms than us. You will not give an account for what they did. You'll give an account for what you did. And so that's where I kind of land with that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, have you done any songs with secular rappers? And would you be against it?
I don't think I have. And it depends on what the song was about.
Yeah. Now, what if it wasn't like, because we've heard some collaborations where it's like they'll bring out their church side, right? They'll go back, because a lot of artists, they'll have like their artistry comes from growing up in the church. and whether their mom or their grandmother would or their father would drag them to church, and they'd be like have nothing to do. Like Zaytoven had nothing to do, so he picked up instruments and he became an amazing producer. And so they'll bring that side out of them to do a record deal. Maybe they're getting paid for a feature or whatnot, but there's that. And then there's like on this Clipse album where there's not really like the features on it. We have Kendrick. I'm going to talk about Tyler, the Creator, in a minute, but there's no church side there. Do you think that, like, what I'm trying to get at is I'm going to read you some lyrics, and maybe they're bad, maybe they're not. We'll let you decide. But are you responsible for what someone else says on a record that you do?
So that's an interesting question. I think in the context of Clipse, I don't think so. I think if it was No Malice's solo project and he had Tyler, the Creator, on, or these guys on, and it's a solo project where he's controlling basically, and it's an expression of his faith, 100%. I think so. Yeah. I think 100%. On an album like this isn't a Christian album, right? Just because he's a Christian, it's not a Christian album. It's like asking an actor who's a believer, can you act in a movie that's not about glorifying Christ? Can you act in a movie that has violence and different things? May even have a sex scene in it that you're not participating in, but it's in the movie, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I think when you get to those, and some people, and again, that goes back to Romans 14. There are some Christians that would be like, I can't do that. You know, Candace Bure Cameron, or Candace Cameron Bure or whatever. Curt Cameron, who used to be on the TV show in the 80s, popular TV show. He became a believer. His sister became a believer, and sounds like she's a godly woman. She married a professional hockey player, but she was doing some sort of Hallmark movie type vibes, and there were scenes where she was supposed to fall in love with a guy and kiss him, and she could pretend like she fell in love with him, but she wouldn't kiss another guy because it wasn't her husband. Like, I think do that, you know? I think do that. I think there could be a place where a marriage understands, hey, here's the limitations for this scene. I'm going to have to do that. Are you okay? She's like, I'm okay with that because that could happen. So I'm not going to judge that. So I think, I think it on this album, I don't know if he's responsible to say that because it's an album with his brother who's not a believer, and they're not doing an album about the glory of Christ. So I think in the same way, like, hey, if you're the director of a movie, but you're not doing a movie about Christ, Christian, then you're going to have themes and aspects to it that are not necessarily, that would be more of the world than of the church, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good nuanced answer. Now, do you think, I'm not going to read the whole lyric, and anybody who wants to see it's the song POV on the Clipse album, but the one part of the lyric that I will read, do you think this is a blasphemous statement? I need God to play the lead in my biopic.
Yeah, that was Tyler, the Creator, said that.
Yeah.
So again, right, this goes back to, so this is what, again, so when Jesus said in Matthew 12, right, that every careless word will be judged, and by your words will be condemned, or by your words will be, I don't think Jesus just meant the words that were spoken, but like the motive, like why, like God knows why you said everything you said, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what Tyler, the Creator, meant when he said that, right? So if he said, because there's one way you could say, yeah, that's kind of black, but then what would be the blasphemy, right? Him saying he wants God to do his biopic. Okay, on one level, are you saying you're equal to God? Blasphemy, right? Okay, yeah, I get that. If we want to go that route. But if you want to if we want to be real practical, Jesus, it did all of our biopic stories by becoming a human being, obeying God perfectly, being punished, and then he was the true humanity. He's the true Adam, right? The true Israelite, the true Jew. So in one sense, he did play the biopic story for all of us. And that's what for those of us who believe in him, we did. Now, I know that's not what Tyler, the Creator, meant, But I
It's
think,
very charitable.
yeah. It's not, hopefully that's what he meant, because he's not a believer. So
Yeah.
was it blasphemous coming from him? Probably so.
Yeah.
So. He probably meant it in a way that arrogantly presumed that I'm so important that God has to do my biopic.
Yeah.
I would say, that's probably, if that's what he meant, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think another charitable way to look at it would maybe like his only way. Like he's like, oh, I'm doing the Clipse album. Why am I doing the Clipse album? Because No Malice came back. He's this Christian guy. This is like the only way he could tie God in with his type of worldview to this album. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, I'll just say this, and this might not be really relevant, but I'll just say this. I personally, man, I don't get offended at stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't listen, the God that I believe in, the God that we serve, brother, like he killed the whole planet minus 8 people, fam, because of this. Like, my God is not a sucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not a punk. He told Peter, I could call legions of angels to my defense. The fact that he let 600 Roman soldiers surround him and punch him in the face and put a crown of thorns on his head was the extreme amount of mercy, grace, and self-control, more than it was like he's just a punk, right? So I don't feel the need I don't get offended when people say stuff. I don't feel the need to defend God. And I go to 2 Timothy 2, 22 through 26, but mainly 25 and 26. Like, I'm not offended when people say that stuff. I'm got to defend God. I don't need to, Isaiah 66, he said, look, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. I live on his footstool, fam. Like, I'm not worried about so I don't take offense to that type of stuff. I know a lot of Christians do. And again, I think because we live in the accuser of the brethren sort of society, I think Christians fall victims sometimes of being offended at things that are not really that serious.
Yeah. I believe it's a verse says, the nations rage and God laughs, right?
Yeah. Like, God's like, oh my gosh, oh no, they said this thing about me. Like, I mean, maybe God humbles people sometimes. They're like, oh, such and such, Little Nas X mocked God, and now look. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe there's a one-to-one there. But I don't, I think God could do that just to be like, yeah, hush up, little dude, little young fella,
Yeah.
But I mean, but it's not like God is threatened by what Little Nas, you lap dancing with the devil. The Lord is not threatened by that. That's a mistake you're going to regret. It doesn't undermine him. God is unchumpable, man. You can't chump the Lord.
like that
you know
word.
what I'm saying? He's unchumpable, man. You can't chump the Lord. So I think sometimes we act like we serve a weak God. Like, let those people say whatever they want. They'll stand before him and give an account.
That's a good song name, man.
What, Unchumpable?
Unchumpable. You got to consider it.
I might do that. I'm working on my last album. I might have to do that.
Is there a release date for that at all?
September, man. It's September.
Wow.
I'm actually doing, so what I'm doing is, I kind of, because I had a lot of music to work with, I'm going to do this. I'm taking a playbook from I'm watching how people are releasing music and what they're doing. So I'm actually going to release like a little 6-song EP in early August, in a couple weeks, 2 weeks, called Dead or Alive. Just 6-song EP. But then the actual album, the real album, is called, I haven't actually said this anywhere else, but I'm dropping an album called Album of the Year or Your Money Back. That's the name of the album.
Oh, wow.
And that comes out in September. And so I'm going to do like a little EP just to kind of wet the whistle. That'll be exclusively on Bandcamp. So on my YouTube channel, different places, that's going to be an exclusive Bandcamp release. I'm not going to put it everywhere, but I'll drop the album, the real album, in September. Album of the Year or Your Money Back.
So if you just search Curt Kennedy on Bandcamp, you'll find that EP in a couple weeks.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. And the album will go straight to streaming?
Yeah, it'll go straight to streaming. Yeah, both projects will go straight to streaming. Hopefully people will support it, and because obviously when you make music, there's a lot that goes into it. You spend some money, and so if possible, if I could recoup at least what I put into it, that'd be sweet. But at the end of the day, though, I'm at a point in my life and in my career musically that I'm not like, I don't need like, oh my gosh, I need, so
yeah,
I want people to just hear the music and be blessed by it. And I think this will be a good album for people as sort of my thanks for the memories. I still have unreleased music that I'm still going to release in EP sort of things, but I'm not doing a new album from start. This will be my last project, sort of start to finish. I'll have some music. It's like, it's just sitting around. Why not release it? And if it blesses people and they want to hear it, cool. If not, no big deal. But it'll be my last like new album that I'm working on.
And are you going to channel that creative energy once you're done making music into YouTube? I know I see your YouTube's pretty active.
Yeah, I probably will. But I'm also like, I've been holding back on writing a lot. And I feel like while music has its own legacy, writing books can last, unless Jesus is coming back soon, like everybody's saying, books can last a lifetime. I mean, a long time. So I think the Lord has definitely given me some things that have been beneficial to my church. And when I go other places, they're like, wow, brother, this is some good stuff, some insightful stuff. I'm hoping to bring some of that more to YouTube. YouTube is just finicky because there's a part of me that I just don't like. Ruslan is a good friend of mine. So Ruslan will give me like hey, you should do this and do this, do this. And sometimes I'll do it, but sometimes it's like, I just don't, I get it because your income, if my primary income was YouTube, I would be on the grind. Yeah. But it's just fickle, man. It's either people are going to support you or they don't. You're going to have, I don't know how big your channel is, but like people are going to, there's room, but then there's also just like, if with YouTube, it's like if you hit a good stride, you can take off, right?
Yeah.
But you got to hit a good stride. You got to hit a good stride, and sometimes it can be hard to do that unless you invest in YouTube in a way that I'm just not going to invest. Totally. At least not in this season. Not in this season of my life. I'm just not going to invest. I'm gonna do what I do.
The reason I bring it up, I love your social commentary. I always tune in when I want to hear something that you have to say. I didn't even know that you had the YouTube channel. I would just listen because you post a lot of stuff just straight to Facebook as well.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't actually. Ruslan was like, bro, you need to get on YouTube. I just didn't care about it. I was like,
yeah.
But he was like, bro, you should get on YouTube. Like your voice needs to be heard. So I was like, oh, okay. But it's been slow growth. I think the past year I haven't grown that much in the channel. Maybe a couple hundred people. So sometimes you can be like, do I feel like doing this? But I think I'm unique. I only post live. I don't do like pre-recorded videos and edit them. I don't do that. I have something I want to say. I might put a couple of verses that I can show on the screen or maybe flip to something, but I just go live. I don't have a script. I don't have nothing. I just like, let's get it. When I'm done, I'm out. And so for me, that's the only way I'll do YouTube. If I got to come up with like let me cut, let me edit, let me do all of that. It's like, man, I'm not doing it. At least not right now. I wouldn't do it. So
yeah, I got one more clip for us, but I'll just say, if you wanted to, you would do very well on YouTube. And you seem like you know exactly what you would need to do if you wanted that.
Yeah, and I might get there, but right now it's just like I got 2 books I'm trying to pump out, 2 to 3 books that are almost like they're ready to go. I just got to tighten them up and then try to see what I can do with them. So I want to do that first, and then maybe I'll spin the block.
I'm sure. Listen, Ruslan's sold a lot of prayer notebooks because of YouTube. So just saying.
That's true. He had. And I know, like, if whenever I drop, I know Ruslan will bring me on his channel. Like when I drop that project, Ruslan will bring me on. He texts me, we text, semi-frequently. So I could always be like, hey, brother, like I texted him a song. He was like, bro, that joint is fire. He texted me a song. He's dropping his tune. So we have that. So I don't like to call in like, hey, bro, I don't like to do that because I just, I think a lot of people would want that. I respect the relationship that we have.
Absolutely.
I respect the friendship that we have. And so I don't want to, but he said, hey, I want to help your channel. So, when I'm, when I'm ready to get like serious, I'm gonna be like, all right, man, what do I got to do? What do you think I should do? He might let me come on his channel a little bit, talk and get some, because whenever I go there, you get people like, oh, let me go follow him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll play this last clip, but I would love to see more Curt Kennedy on YouTube for sure.
What's up? I appreciate that.
Holy shit. So wait, is it time for you to tell us why it's not No Malice anymore?
Sure. I'm all about, I think the real question is, why would I go back to the group, or if I'm going to go back to the group or not? That's where the weight lies. I'm all for branding. I don't ever do the remix for years. I've always been Big Mac, orange drink, fries, you know. So when I come back to the Clipse and the people that were checking for us and the fans, I wasn't giving them the Clipse, but this little new twist to it. I'm coming back and doing Clipse with my brother.
Okay.
As Clipse. Yeah, Malice and Pusha.
And will you remain Malice if you were to do solo music?
Yeah.
I wish I knew the verse.
What do you think about that? You think that's a smart move? You think? I mean, branding wise, sure. I'm sure Malice will hold more algorithmic power, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the first thing that he said. I'm like, nah, I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. If I was trying to be charitable, I could see, like, I mean, in all seriousness, what does it, like, does the name matter, the content, or like what is it that really matters, right? So on one level, if I were being charitable, I could say, yeah, I think people know Malice and Push, right? That's what you know. So it's like, all right, you're returning to the familiarity basically because of branding and things like that, right? That makes sense to me. I get that. So I could see why you want to do that. Like, prime example, if I like Curt Allen is my real name. Curt Allen, not Kennedy. Kennedy is a stage name I picked up years ago from remember the project I was telling you about wanting to share my testimony over the course of the album. One of the versions of that album was called A Public Controversy. And that was one of the first versions. Then it became Once Upon a Time in America. But I wanted to kind of pick a name that I felt like was associated with controversy publicly. And I think at that time, John F. Kennedy Jr.'s son died in a plane crash with his wife. And I was like, wow, that family just always had so much tragedy in their life. And so I adapted Kennedy as a part of that. But my real name is Curt Allen. But when I write books and stuff, when I do that, I'm putting it out as Curt Kennedy because that's what people know. They know who Curt Kennedy. Now, people who know me know who Curt Allen is. My church knows who Pastor Curt. But like the most people think Kennedy might be my real name. It's a pseudonym. So, but I'm going to do everything on a public level as Curt Kennedy because that's what people know. It would be dumb to write a book and put it out as Curt Allen or Curt Kennedy. No, people know Curt Kennedy. I'm going to keep it at that. So, but it's not my name. So again, the Malice has a connotation.
So the definition.
Kennedy's not a sin issue, right? So
the intention or desire to do evil. It's tough to Christianize that.
Yeah, it is. So on the charitable side, one more, I would say people who ask him a question about that it gives him an opportunity to share the gospel. And he could say something like, Malice is what I was about. And so I'm using this name because it reminds me of where God has brought me from. Right. Yeah. And it could be like, why are you, but I personally don't think people care enough, to be honest. I think you made a comment earlier that we didn't really go into detail on, but I just don't think people are checking. They don't care about Christianity in the same way. They don't care. This whole idea like the world's watching the church. No, they're not. They don't care anymore, fam. Yeah. I think, I just don't think people care. But so on that side, but on the flip side, which is where I initially went, was like, I'm just not feeling the wisdom of that, man. I'm not, and I don't think he added enough wisdom to help me understand it. Now, not that he needs to, that's between him and the Lord. But I think, to your point, reading the definition, malice is a sin issue that Jesus died for, that we don't want to associate with. He knows that malice, to his point in one of the previous clips that you put up, he was known for like never smiling and all of that, right? So you're reassuming a moniker that had a character trait attached to it, which we know was demonic because, we know we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. So as a non-believer, that name is what you use to party and all of that. And then God brought you out of it. And obviously his father's a deacon. That probably was some of the reason why he had the sort of conviction in the first place, because he knew enough to kind of know what it meant to follow the Lord. But I just think, I think malice, I think, we talked about where it could be good. I'm not feeling it though, in terms of using that name still. I get you don't want to, I don't think people would care that much. Like, this is why The Clipse were good. They were okay. They weren't huge enough that they weren't Jay-Z or them were like, if you come back, you don't want to, and say you don't want to go by Jay-Z anymore. You want to go by James. Like, that's too different, right? Like, he was huge. I don't think people would care if you said No Malice versus Malice. Like, on one level, I think it sounds like they kind of feeling themselves a little bit like, well, I don't want to keep this. I don't think people will really care. I think social media makes people have short memories, bro. Like, think about, you know this because you do this stuff too. A story that's huge for a few days is gone 2 weeks later.
Absolutely.
Anything. If you ever get caught in a public scandal, just be patient. For a week or two, that's all everyone will be talking about. And then they're going to move on, man. A month later, no one even remembers what you did. So I just don't think people would be like, why do you say No Malice? No, only the church is going to care about that type of stuff.
Yeah. With a name like Anger, at least you could be like, well, you could be righteously angry.
Right.
Can't really be righteously malice, but I get
righteous malice.
Now, do you think, because on the business side of things, I wonder, like, all right, because people who came out with music in that time in the 90s and early 2000s, they were in a culture where everybody kind of listened to the same thing. Like you said, you had to go out and purchase music. You had to put a lot more effort into listening to music. So you attach yourself to this music more. So their music at that time had way more lasting power. So I think that, I don't know if it even makes sense, but if you put the name Malice in Clipse, it's easier to click within the streaming links to go back to the old music, which creates more revenue. I'm not sure.
Well, that's why I said from a business perspective, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me for him to go back to that. I got a buddy named Strack, right? Me and Strack. I call him Strack the Wolverine. I kind of nicknamed him that. But his rap name is his hype man Strack. So one time on my last album, we did a song together, and I put Strack the Wolverine, and he was like, "Dad, bro, I wish you would have put hype man Strack, because then that would connect people back to other music that I've done. That Strack the Wolverine doesn't exist in the." So from a business perspective, it makes sense to me, because even my buddy, we got a new song on my album called Cheat Code, and I'm going to make sure I put his hype man Strack on the actual on the album. Like when it plays, it'll say his hype man Strack. So if people want to look up more of his music, they can type in his hype man Strack, right?
Yeah.
So on a business level, I think there's wisdom in that. I think it could have done good for him to maybe explain it on that level, so people know. But then someone say, well, why do you want your past music to get streams because you weren't a crit? There's always something, right? So I just think to use their album title, let guys sort them out.
That's a perfect way to end things. Thank you so much for coming on, doing the show. Really appreciate your insights. I really think you were the perfect person to do this with me. Is there any last thoughts, or if you want to plug anything? I know you said you have an album coming out. If you want to talk about that again, and some books you're working on right now.
I feel free to check out my channel, Curt Kennedy Corner Store. I think it's Curt Kennedy's Corner, really, actually, on YouTube. I think you'll probably tag me for whatever you drop videos of this. So would love for you all to check out what I'm doing over there. CurtKennedy.com is more like a merch site. I'm actually doing some new designs. Me and my son are actually doing some designs in August. We're going to be doing some new stuff, so that'd be cool. And be looking out. I have you can go to Bandcamp if you want to listen to any music. He talked about my album C4. He referenced a song called Rednecks and N-Word, which is on an album called The Appendix. There was an album I dropped after C4. If you want to go to any of the streaming sites and look up Curt Kennedy, all the projects are there. Would love to get your support and holler at me on any of the platforms. I'm mainly on YouTube, and I still post on Instagram because I do photography. So my Instagram is more photography, but I don't post on it as much as I used to. But I appreciate it, man. It was a good time, brother. I appreciate you letting me get on here and talk. I don't get to talk hip hop that much these days because my channel is a different audience. So I probably wouldn't get the views if I talk about hip hop. Because it's just not there. But I loved it. I was a hip hop head. I'm a historian. I grew up in the culture. Like, I love the culture of it, not in the demonic side, but just like what it did in society and I still use it. A lot of rapping taught me how to preach because I use so many words, and now I think in rhythmic pattern even when I'm preaching. So I love it for that sake. But it was fun to do this, man. I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys. If you haven't, like the stream and subscribe for more interviews like this. Have a good night.